You're listening to the Flip Houses Like a Girl podcast, where we educate, empower, and celebrate everyday women who are facing their fears, juggling family and business, embracing their awesomeness, and wholeheartedly chasing their dream of flipping houses. Each episode delivers honest to goodness tools, tips, and strategies you can implement today to get closer to your first or next successful house flip. Here's your spiky-haired, breakfast taco-loving host, house flipping coach, Debbie DeBeery.
Hey there. Thanks for hanging out with us today. So it's been a minute since I've released an episode. It's been a few weeks. Why? Because I've been traveling. I ran away. I fled the heat in Austin and went to Santa Fe for a couple weeks. And that was beautiful. Such great weather. And then I went to Alabama and Tennessee, and neither of those places did I avoid heat. But it was summer vacation and we made memories, hung out with the kid a ton, and it's time to get back to school, right? So all of those things that you wanted to accomplish this summer and you didn't get around to, let it go, all right? Did you create some awesome memories? Did you spend some time with friends and family? Perfect. That's the point, right? That's what we're chasing, is that connection. It's already here. So just like I told my Flip sisters recently in an email, don't shoot on yourself. If you didn't accomplish all the things, if you didn't take all the actions that you wanted to take, oh well, let it go and move on. All right? Give yourself some grace. We are human after all. So that said, let's have a conversation with Jenny, one of our Flip sisters who is in Fort Collins, Colorado. And she recently completed her first flip to rent in a different state. So she managed it from Colorado and she bought a property in North Carolina. So we're going to dig into the things she learned and the interesting experience she had with a tenant that she inherited. This was a first for me, so you definitely want to hear it. And then a weird situation with an alarm company. It was such a frustrating thing that happened, and some other stuff. So let's go. Let's get into this conversation with Jenny. Let's start with the usual way with a little introduction. First name, where you are, a little bit of your background, like what do you do in the world?
Okay. I am Jenny. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is about an hour and a half due north of Denver. I live in an area of town called Old Town, which is full of just historic bungalows. And that is kind of where my heart is when it comes to real estate and refurbishing. And that's kind of what really sparked my interest in getting involved with the program. My husband, Micah, he is in the construction industry and has been for a very long time. So he kind of sees like a strange back end of the industry because he works with plumbers and mechanical companies on the sales side. And so being in Fort Collins, we always know like where a new brewery or distillery is going in, because 9 times out of 10, he's like sold some of the parts or something like that, so it's kind of interesting to hear his perspective. But as far he's been insanely supportive as far as like me being involved in this program. And, I talk with him all the time about what I'm up to, what I'm learning, and what's going on. So
that's awesome. I love it. I love hearing support.
He's great. And as far as we go, it's just us. We don't have kids. We have 2 dogs, which are kind of like, furry children, and a Buck and Otto, and they're very sweet. And they also love living in Old Town and finding dog buddies and kid buddies and stuff like that. As far as what I do in the world, I am primarily a freelance graphic designer and marketing professional. And then I also teach at CSU in the journalism department.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's very fun. It's been very interesting the past couple of years, but
Oh gosh, yeah.
but in the end, I just really love it. It's a lot of fun. I've been doing that in various capacities for the past, I guess 10 years ish, 10 or 12 years. And it's been really cool to kind of just see the department change and evolve with trends and times and stuff like that. And then I guess kind of a little addendum to like what my time peg for getting involved with the FlipSisters is my parents asked me to manage a renovation on a rental property that they have here in Fort Collins. And, I grew up, my dad's an architect and did a lot of his own project management. And so I grew up on job sites. I know exactly what that looks like. And they were like, we know you can do this. Just, you're the local. So get this done. And I was just like, it's something that I always had in the back of my head. And from that moment, I was like, yeah, I got to do more of this. Like, This is great. And then, Angel and Michelle actually visited the rental when it was like just about complete. And then, and I knew that they were in the program. And so they both were like, yeah, Jenny, you gotta do this. And so they convinced me, they twisted my arm, and the rest is history.
I love it. Okay. So you're still doing like, is your main thing the marketing stuff?
It's
or is it kind of both, the teaching?
It's kind of both. It changes. Like right now it is because school's not in session really.
Yeah.
So
sure.
So yeah, it switches.
Okay. So you joined the program when did you join?
In March.
Okay. So you joined and your plan was to get a rental.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we already had a rental. And so it was kind of like, my hesitation is because we were looking at getting another one for sure. And then eventually flipping something. And then also kind of like reorganizing all of our stuff.
Yep. Got it. Okay. So you live in Fort Collins, Colorado. You just finished your renovation on a flip to rent in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And you chose North Carolina because you've got family in the area. Let's talk about, let's break it down. That's how you chose the area, because you were wanting to target something that was near your family. Obviously you would use it yourself. Or is it a long-term, I should ask, is it a long-term rental or is it a short-term rental, or what are you using with that?
It's right now long-term.
Okay. When you bought it, was the property vacant or did you inherit a tenant?
I inherited a tenant.
Okay.
And that's kind of came with its own baggage.
Yeah. How did you buy the property? How did you finance it? Did you just get a traditional conventional loan?
So what we did was the market out there was getting really, really heating up as we were starting to make offers. And we submitted 4 or 5 offers that were we weren't even close.
Yeah.
And so when it got to the point where we submitted an offer that lost to a cash offer that was the same amount, we were like, all right, forget this. Let's HELOC. Let's do something so we have enough cash on hand. And so we did that. And that's how that gave us the edge on this property.
Okay. So you got a HELOC on your primary.
Yeah.
We're able to pull out a bunch of equity and then you were then a cash buyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What month did you close on the property?
We closed in May.
Okay.
Toward the end of May.
Okay. So, all right. So you paid cash and it's a condo, right? Or like a townhouse?
It's kind of a townhouse style 2-story.
Yeah. That's what made me think it was more townhousey. Okay. So when you bought it, were you planning on, there was a tenant in place. Were you planning on doing renovations, or what was your plan?
So originally our plan was to keep the tenant in place. He was at the beginning, he was kind of touchy as far as like letting people in, like really
Yeah.
resistant to the idea that the condo was going to sell.
Yeah.
But then our realtor, who's amazing, talked with him and explained, like, this is what they're doing. This is an investment property, and they have no desire to kick you out. They will raise the rent, but explained all those things. And we were willing to leave him in there for a year, was our initial thought, and then after a year, go in and shine everything up. About 4 days into the due diligence period, the tenant got arrested, which kind of changed the trajectory of that whole line of thought and led to a whole bunch of other chaos.
Okay, so you buy a property with a tenant, you're inheriting that lease. You're inheriting the tenant. When was their lease expiration?
So funny thing is, they were month to month / we learned later didn't really have a lease or a deposit or any of those good things.
Oh, super. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So 4 days into your due diligence, your soon to be tenant is arrested.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
So our primary immediate concern was that the day that he was arrested is the day before my realtor and the general contractor were supposed to go through and put together a list for renovations. And the tenant was the only person, in air quotes, with a key to the condo. And so that couldn't really happen because his key was with his personal effects in county lockup. So he canceled the appointment for the next day and instead set a call with the selling agent and the seller. Yeah, we were trying to figure out like a lot about like, okay, well, how do we move forward? What does this mean for everything else? And it got interesting. But so our realtor had the call with the selling agent and the seller, and initially the seller basically did not care that we couldn't get in and was just being super resistant about, like, I don't have a key. I can't let you guys in. And she was being really kind of not party to the cause at all. And what it boiled down to was finally our realtor kind of dropped the hammer and said, you are in breach of contract right now and they need to get in. So you need to extend the due diligence period.
Yeah.
And so after that conversation wrapped, about less than an hour after that, I got the amendment to the contract extending due diligence for a week. And then a key materialized magically the next day out of thin air.
Wow.
And so our realtor was able to, and he took that opportunity to get in and just kind of get the lay of the land and see what we were going to be up against. And, tenant had no intent of moving out at that point in time. And so, of course, there was all kinds of stuff in the house. And he was able to get a firmer grasp on things like, well, now the dishwasher needs to be replaced, things like that,
Yeah,
and so, so that was good that he got in before the GC. And so, yeah.
Okay. So you're finally able to do your due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when you gather your information? What happens next?
We get the estimate from the contractor. Everything looks good. And we decide a couple things. We initially decided that the downstairs was going to be painted because the walls were like literally like black chalkboard paint on the bulk of the surfaces. And so we're like, this has to go. And so we're going to hire pros to handle that. And then, and made some decisions like that, in addition to lining up like, the air conditioner people and, looking into cleaning services, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so we go through due diligence and are still moving forward. And so then we make plans to head out there. Even though they had offered a remote close because it was a cash deal, we offered to go out there for the closing date. and, stayed with Micah's parents for the weekend. And then all four of us drove over to Wilmington on the closing date to, just be there and check out the property. And the arrangement was that that was a Tuesday. And so the deal was that we were going to go there Tuesday, and then Micah had a flight out Wednesday at noon. And then I was just going to stick around for the rest of the week and just kind of get things done. And in the meantime, we had been in touch with the tenant's sister, who had been kind of the family member put in charge of handling all of his details while he was in county lockup. And so our understanding was the weekend before we were to get into Wilmington, she was going to move everything out of the house, or at least most things. Like, she was going to work to that end.
Okay. So the deal was he was moving out.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We were moving him out actively because.
Got it. Okay. There's no lease, not even a month, like there's nothing. So, yep, he's going to be removed. Okay. So she is there, or supposed to be moving out his items.
Yeah. And so we get into the house on Tuesday and realize that none of that had happened at all. Like, he still has clothes everywhere. Like, they even told us, like, oh yeah, well, all the TVs have been pulled off the walls. That was false. That just nothing had been done. Nothing.
Like, you wouldn't know. Like, it's weird. Why?
Right.
Why even lie about that? Like,
weird. It was so bizarre. And so we spent our first handful of hours in the house literally just pulling everything downstairs into the front room, just to make it easier for whoever showed up to get it done. Because now they were like, well, it's going to be this coming weekend. And I was like, okay, that's not going to work because I leave Saturday.
Yeah.
And so as we're doing this negotiation, finally I told my realtor, I was like, just tell them that work starts tomorrow. And so we need to have everything out.
Yeah.
And so, that day that was what that day was. And then we also met with the property manager that afternoon, who was still like really encouraged by, the state of the condo, the location, everything like that. And so we felt good about that. And then that next day, to her credit, the sister rallied like the entire family to come and help move things out. And so we Michael left, and I just kind of dealt with family and like helped out and stuff like that, and separated things into like the pile that got junk was going to pick up versus the pile of things that were going with them and all that kind of stuff. And the GC met me over there that afternoon so we could lay harder eyes on it. And I informed them, okay, now your painters have a bigger job because now that I've seen it, let's paint the whole thing. So that was a positive change. And then that next morning, I went to Home Depot at seriously like 6:30 in the morning to rent one of those big flatbed trucks that beeps when you back it up, because they had no way of getting the big furniture out of the condo. And so the sister and brother-in-law met me over there, and we loaded all the big furniture and all the rest of the stuff onto the flatbed truck. They had a storage unit. And so we were, going to take it over there. And so finally the place was empty on that morning. And then, and that afternoon, everybody showed up. I had the carpet cleaner, pest control, the AC service guy came up, and then the deep cleaners showed up at 3:30. And that was like the end of that day. They got their job done. And then that next morning I walked in, it was a Friday, and it felt like a completely different place. It was just cleaned out and done. And I was like, okay, we can work with. So, but it was great.
How did you find, okay, so you're in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
You bought the property in the property's in Wilmington. right?
Mhm.
Okay. Your family is nearby.
Yeah.
How did you find your realtor? How'd you find your team? How'd you find your realtor, your contractor? Your property manager? How'd you find your team?
So I found the realtor on Zillow, and that was an insane stroke of luck because I've definitely had bad luck with finding realtors that way. But I just clicked his photo and he immediately texted, and then I was like, can we talk through some things? I want to give you some details. And so he called me almost immediately after that. We had a great conversation, and it just felt like he was on board. And then also that he was the kind of person who was going to work for us and who was going to work well with us. And he totally was. He was
nice.
great.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you find your general contractor?
A recommendation from the realtor.
Yeah.
The realtor was kind of clutch. Like he recommended the general contractor, and then he made a couple of recommendations for property managers.
Yeah.
And we wound up going with one of them.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, really, a realtor is an active realtor is connected in that way. Like they can be a really great resource. Okay, great. You get in, you start cleaning things up. What did you pay for the property?
It was $205.
And what were you budgeting for? Well, what was your plan? Okay, so you were remodeling it to use as a long-term rental?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. What was your renovation plan?
So our renovation plan initially was a little bit more robust because we thought we had a year. And so we were like, well, now we don't. So we reeled in some of the bigger ticket items, and we're like, okay, let's just, get everything back to start. And, like I mentioned, like things like the dishwasher needed to be replaced. The garbage disposal needed to be replaced. Like there were a lot of things like that had to be done. So it went from, let's investigate moving some walls to let's not do that and just focus on paint and making this a good, solid, clean home.
Yeah, right. Like Clorox and paint.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's like you saw the inside. That was exactly what it needed. And so initially we were looking at, a year out spending like between 20 and 25. But that shifted rapidly to, okay, well, we have to do this now. So we were going to try to stay between 5 and 10. And we're really hoping not to go over 10. We wound up in the 13 to 14 range. But a lot of that was paint because I decided to phone a friend on that one instead of like, initially we were thinking like, well, while the painters are doing the downstairs, like I could handle some details in the upstairs, but it was too much. Like there was no way that was going to happen.
Were there any weird surprises that came up? Like any repairs you had to make that you weren't planning on, or was it pretty much just like some cosmetic stuff?
There were a couple of doors that had to be special ordered, just because I didn't, I was like, oh, I'll just go to Home Depot and buy a door, but they were really narrow. They were 20 inches. And so it's one of those sizes where it just did not, and I didn't even think about it before we headed out there, but the GC ordered one and got it before photos were shot. So that was fine. ADT, the alarm system. Yeah. So I asked probably once a week if they had figured out the code to the alarm system yet. And the answer was always no. And so when we got in there, there was no code. And so my realtor said, well, I have a contact at ADT, let's get you hooked up. And so we got connected with ADT and set an install date. And I was back in Colorado by the time this happened, but so he called, let me know he was in the house. And he had just accidentally tripped the alarm system. And I was like, well, we did that literally 3 times while we were there. So he, after doing that, he started the process of reprogramming, and he called me 45 minutes later and was like, so all these people who don't have the code, one of them is actively interacting with the app. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? Because they didn't stop anything. He was like, right, but they can see your system. So, and this is like well after, like, I'm home, we clearly own the condo. And so he said, well, there's some steps that they have to go through in order to pass things over to you. And so he gave me this whole instruction list of steps to go through, which I texted to the sister, and I was like, can you please reach out to whoever this could be and get them to go through these steps. And then he called me.
Gosh.
Luckily, before I had to call him back, he called me and said, I just ran this by my supervisor, and the supervisor was like, do not pass go, just replace the panel wholesale. So
right,
that,
like, what are we doing? Why are we,
right.
Why is this so archaic that we have to involve, like, that's just bizarre to me.
It's so strange. And and the whole alarm system was like, that was kind of drama from the jump.
That's just lunacy.
It was absolutely mind-boggling. And it was strange. And then after this whole drama with the key, like, we couldn't get the key, and the key's in county lockup with the tenant and all this kind of stuff. Like, after that, I swear there was one moment where the realtor called me again to tell me again that someone else came forward with not only a key, but then another mailbox key. And I was like, and this is when, like,
oh my gosh,
my husband and I were literally walking on the beach with his parents, and I just, like, sat down. It's like, what is this? What is happening?
When you posted in the group, like, that it was done, and you were like, oh my gosh, this project, like, this property, what was that? What was that about? Was it, what was happening there?
So a lot of it was like, thank God this is finished, and I got it done. I mean, I was definitely coming from a good place. Like, it was like, we achieved this after everything that the property and the people threw at us. The GC only had to extend their deadline by 3 days. And that was literally, like, on our side, that was the only thing that went wrong. And I feel like everything else, well, and the budget increase, but we were like, this is part of our long-term plan. We can do this, And so that was a lot of relief, and honestly, like, kind of pride. Like, I was proud of myself that, we pushed through, got it done, and, found this epic team of people that were on our side and helped us get it done and get the ball across the finish line and hand it over to the property manager.
So you managed this mostly from a distance, right? You were home. Okay. And your GC did what they said they would do when they said they would do it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And your realtor was there helping out. So how long did it take for you to get it all cleaned up and ready to go?
I'm looking at my notes. I made notes about this because I knew that question was going to come. So the GC got in there May 2nd, 3rd-ish. And then our agreement, June 2nd, 3rd-ish. And then our agreement was that they would have all the work finished by June 17, which was kind of twofold. Like, the property managers really wanted to get in the middle of June and be able to market it and take photos and all those good things. And then also the GC was going out of town that weekend. And so it was kind of a good time peg for everything. we had to, the doors that we had to
Oh
order,
yeah.
they weren't delivered until the Monday after.
Hmm.
And so they still had to do that. And then the plumber was not really available. So he still had a little bit of work to do over that weekend. But
Okay.
everything was finished by June 22nd.
Awesome. Oh, okay. So it's ready to go. You hand it over to the property manager. And do you have a tenant already?
No, but they have a few bites.
Nice. Okay.
So
And let me ask you this, since all the rage is like, doing a furnished rental, whether it's short-term or midterm, what made you decide to do a long-term rental? And the fact that you have family in the area,
yeah.
thinking you could use it, right? When you go visit or whatever. What was the reasoning behind doing a long-term rental?
I looked around at the other units in the same complex, and it's absolutely full of long-term rentals. And so we kind of saw that that's a successful model there.
Yep.
And so it didn't really scare us to get into that business. Um, and as far as like having family in the area and wanting to use it, sometime in the future, we're definitely, and like I said, initially we were going to just kind of put it to the side for a year.
Yeah.
And so our hope now is that we can keep it as a long-term rental for 3 or 4 years and just kind of get that going, pay it down, get it making a little bit of cash,
Mm-hmm.
and then convert it to probably midterm
Yeah.
rental.
Cool.
And hopefully at some point in time get to the point where we have like a month or two during the summer that it's just open.
Yes. Yeah. What kinds of rents are you looking at there? What do you think you can get?
When we initially looked at this, we were thinking 13 to 1500 a month.
Uh-huh.
Our property manager's listing it for 1650.
Nice. Is it a 2 bedroom or what's the makeup? Bedroom, bath?
2 bedroom, 2 bath.
Cool.
And there are 2 full baths. One's upstairs, one's downstairs.
Nice. Nice. Is that how the bedrooms are too?
Both are up, and the bathroom is kind of between the two in a
Oh yeah.
hallway.
Cool. What's the square footage?
It's between 11 and 12.
Nice.
It's not huge, but it's a good workable layout, and it's a good
Totally.
size.
Yeah. I mean, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you working on now? Now that that's done, what's your next plan?
So I have connected with a realtor here in Fort Collins who has worked with flippers.
Mhm.
And I actually just texted her earlier today about trying to find something that we could flip like here in town.
That's awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
Anything else about your first project that we didn't touch on?
Not really. I mean, it was, I mean, there's probably some details in there because it's felt like literally every day there was something that was driving my realtor and myself to drink. But but it was after everything, I learned a lot, and it wound up being a great project. I feel like the transformation was a doozy,
Yeah.
outside of the fact that part of my job was moving everything out, which was
Right.
completely unexpected.
Right.
The transformation was a good one.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with it.
Awesome. When doing a flip to sell, there can be, time is so important. And there's usually a lot of there's just so much emotion and so much going on, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear usually. Were you worried about stuff? Did you have some fears going into this project? Like what was going on around that?
I I had some fears going in. I definitely am of that personality in which, I walked in the door and immediately started picking the place apart and, just kind of finding too many flaws, and had to knock that off. Micah kind of talked me down. He was like, no, this place is great. It's got good bones. We're going to be fine, and I knew that in my head, but my heart was like, no, this has got to go, and all that kind of stuff. I also had a fear that it wouldn't get rented. And it's, as of today, it's been on the market for 6 days. Yeah. And I know that they've had some bites, and I know that they're working on it. So I really feel like it's going to go soon. And I just need to trust the process and, let that happen. That is definitely another fear.
I know. I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know that ever goes away. You just get better at managing it.
Yeah. And I don't know how it could, because it's a very real thing, you depend on that. So
yeah, right. Anything else? What about anything around managing the project from a distance? Like, did that go better than you expected, or kind of as you expected, or?
I think better than I expected, because that was definitely something that I had some concerns about, not being able to lay eyes on it, not being able to just run on over if somebody had a question, which was absolutely true when I was managing my parents' renovation. Like I live 5 minutes away from that house, so I could just jump over there. But I think I set a good expectation with the realtor, who is also insanely communicative about everything leading up to that. And so I think that helped a lot. And, he and the contractor, we had a lot of conversations, the three of us, before I even got out there. And so that was really helpful. And so people were, between the realtor, the contractor, and the property management company, everybody was sending photos when they had a question and stuff like that. And so that worked really, really well. And I think that if I had people in there who were not of that mind, it would have been different. Like, I would have been much more worried, but they just, without me even asking, they just kind of took it upon themselves to show me what they were looking at, which was super helpful.
Absolutely. I love that initiative. I love it when people just know to just let people know what's going on, right? Like, just send pictures, let me know what's going on. It is nerve-wracking when you're managing a project from a distance and you don't have that communication. Is like, oh my gosh. So I'm glad you've got a good team there. Me
too. It absolutely, this project would have been a disaster without the team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the team. It's all about the team. Well, I'm super excited for you. Yay. Congrats. That's a big deal.
Thanks.
You did it. You did it.
I did
it from a distance. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on before we leave?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, just a final parting shout out to my Colorado FlipSisters, who were sounding boards and, just appropriately slack-jawed when some other weird thing happened. It was great to have them as resources as I was going through this whole thing.
Yeah, you've got some really good ones there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're in a good spot.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking me. This was a good conversation.
Awesome, Jenny. Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks. You do the same.
Bye.
Bye.
There you have it. Jenny's first flip to rent in a different state story. Thanks again for sharing that. You're going to inspire people to go do big, scary things. So thanks, Jenny. All right. So if you have been sitting on the sideline because you are scared, or you don't know what the heck you're doing, or you have no idea where to start, or you think it's too hard, or whatever else has been holding you back, but you want to do this thing, stop putting it off. Life is too short. Stop putting it off. All right? See if we're a fit. We not only walk you through all the steps, but we also support you every single day as you take this journey. All right. Daily guidance, daily support, and a group full of women across the US who are there to cheer you on. So if you want to see if we're a fit to work together, go to herfirstflip.com, fill out the application, and then schedule a time to talk to us. Simple as that. All right. Okay. Until next time, go out there, flip houses like a girl, leave people and places better than you find them, and make it a great day. Bye, y'all.